Welcome back to Utility Room Legends, where we dive into the world of water infrastructure and shine a light on the people who keep it moving, controlled, and reliable. Thank you to everyone who continues to listen, subscribe, and share the podcast. You can find every episode on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and at utilityroomlegends.com, where you can also reach out if you would like to be a future guest. When we talk about legends in this industry, we're not talking about folklore or tall tales. We're talking about the people who quietly dedicate their careers to solving problems most people never even think about, until something goes wrong. Today's guest is someone who truly embodies that. Antonio Flori is the Corrosion Engineering Manager at Denver Water, with nearly 2 decades of experience. And what's remarkable is that his journey started as a teenager, working as an intern measuring cathodic protection test stations across the system. From those early days in the field to now leading corrosion strategies for one of the most respected utilities in the country, Antonio's career is a testament to what happens when technical expertise meets curiosity, humility, and a genuine passion for work. In this episode, we get into the critical role corrosion plays in aging infrastructure and why it's responsible for billions of gallons of water loss every year. How utilities like Denver Water are thinking long-term, designing systems not just for today, but for 100-year life cycles. The growing challenges around population growth, drought, and infrastructure investment, and how emerging demands from data centers to new technologies are reshaping the future of water systems in ways most people don't yet realize. We also get into some great conversations about why material selection and installation matters more than most people think, the importance of in-house expertise versus a one-size-fits-all design approach, and how collaboration across manufacturers, engineers, and utilities is the only way this industry continues to evolve. Antonio brings a rare combination of deep technical expertise and the ability to communicate it with clarity, a skill that's just as important as the knowledge itself. And that's exactly why we call this Utility Room Legends, because people like Antonio are in the trenches solving real problems and protecting the systems we all depend on. They are the ones truly shaping the future of this industry. Let's get into it. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
First podcast. That's always exciting,
Cheers.
Cheers to that, man.
Yeah. No, I was really excited to get you on. And I really wanted to have someone from Denver Water on. You know, we want to make sure they're interesting too, right?
Yeah, there you go. We can bring the interesting. We got a lot going on.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to have you. Why don't we start out with you introducing yourself and telling us what you do?
Sounds good. So my name's Antonio Flori. I manage the Corrosion Engineering section at Denver Water. This will be year 17 for me.
Wow.
So it's hard to believe. It's almost half my life at this point.
All at Denver.
Which shows you what a great place it really is to work. But started at 19 as an intern and just never left.
Yeah.
So started in corrosion as well. So
really?
Yep.
What were you doing as an intern in corrosion?
So started with, we still have the intern program where hire a few kids and they go and measure cathodic protection test stations all around town. So we have nearly 4,000 of those now.
Wow.
So that's what I started doing with Michelle, actually.
I was going to say that, yeah, because did you work with Michelle? Because I know that's how she started.
Yep.
And I thought she did water quality, right? I think or some
She
point.
was in corrosion with me for to start as interns, and then she's navigated a few areas through Denver Water after that. But yeah, we were that first summer. She was there, so got to know her, and yeah, we had a good time out there.
Yeah.
So, it's a cool way to see the system. So we just got to drive around. We didn't have a supervisor in the truck with us necessarily, so we got to just have a good time together and just get to learn.
Well, imagine back then they just left the corrosion people alone.
Yeah, we did not get a lot of manager involvement. Yeah.
Yeah. And so where did you go to college?
So I went to the Colorado School of Mines.
Wow.
So, and right after my first year there is when I started at Denver Water. So it all kind of just came together at that point,
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine that went there and then realized pretty quick that he was like always acing everything, but he was a partier.
Yeah.
He gets straight A's, and then he went to School of Mines, and that changed. He almost got kicked out for grades. And then my son had a friend that, or has a friend that went to Mines, and then I think the first quarter he was like, transferred to CSU.
Man, especially, and I think it's still a tough school, but man, back then it was brutal that first couple years.
Yeah.
And it was a wake up call for me for sure. I mean, I had worked decently hard in high school, but man, I was not ready for what that brought me.
Yeah.
You know, it was a challenge, but it was really a good experience too. You know, it definitely taught you how to work hard and kind of prioritize your time. And I was lucky too, because I ended up going into metallurgical engineering and taking corrosion classes. And so I'm one of those people that actually get to use my degree every day, which is pretty rare. So that's still fun, especially when I get to dig into those little side pieces of metallurgy in my job, you know?
Yeah. It's like, I tell, what's funny is, my son hates one of them, but both of them hate geometry and I'm like fit in physics. And I'm like, that's like geometry and physics is all I do.
That's it.
Pressure
right?
and force, and it's those are the ones that it is funny because I don't recall ever being. Well, I used Pythagorean theorem the other one time.
Yeah,
it was like someone was wanting to know how much deflection they had to have for the slope, and I'm like, oh, this is Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah, exactly. I know how to do this, you know.
So it's it's interesting. It's use math all the time though. That's like the one thing that you always go, we're never gonna, you're never gonna use this, but all the time.
It's ironic too, because that's the class you say it about is math, and then of all the classes, that is what you still tend to use quite a bit, especially in this industry, which is good though. It keeps it challenging, Yeah.
Although it's I kind of think sometimes in like school when my kids I'm helping with their homework, it's like, I mean, I get what they're trying to do with working out or the whole different core process of what do they call it, Common Core, but it's like. That stuff, it's going to be so different when they're older. Like calculator and having the internet. Like even if you need to solve a problem, as long as you understand what the problem is, you can solve it just by working through it. Right. I think it's more just understanding concepts.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is interesting. I think my wife and I talk about that if we decide to have kids. It's like they teach things so much different. I don't know how we're going to help with homework and things like that. It's
crazy. Like I'll text the teacher sometime and I'm like, I can't figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone's, they see things different anyway. So trying to teach every kid how to think of math the same way is, it's kind of tough.
It is kind of tough.
It doesn't really make sense.
I'm with you. Math especially, there's different approaches and certain kids kind of line up with each one of those.
See it different. Yeah. Well, they don't even do all the stuff that, oh shoot, when in algebra when you would start canceling out and
right,
they don't even do that anymore. So it's weird.
That is weird. I've never even seen it done. So
it looks like hieroglyphics now to me.
Yeah, so. Right. I'm sure it will for me too.
But the one thing about algebra that I tell my kid that you will always use is you need to learn how to solve for something you don't know. 3 pieces of the equation or 2 pieces, but you don't know the third. That's really all it is.
It's so true. And algebra is the one in geometry. Those are the 2 main things you still use all the time. It's funny in engineering, you go through Calc 1 through 3, differential equations. Some go even more advanced than that. That is the stuff. I don't think I've used calculus in years. It's just, they use algebra and geometry. So if anything sticks, as long as it's those 2, you'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, you guys, in engineers in general, Denver Water has like the coolest engineers.
I like to think we do.
Talk and have a conversation and go hang out at the golf course or something like that.
Exactly.
Like that's kind of rare. So you have some engineers. A lot of them can be it's just introvert, and so to find somebody who's able to communicate, that's the hardest thing. I always say that engineers are really, really, really good at solving problems and designing things. And sometimes the X factor is they lack the communication to effectively relay why it is like that.
It's absolutely true. And I really noticed that at college, that, it was a little difficult to fit in with some of the groups at Mines just because, I had been in a blues band for a few years by the time I got into college and kind of hung out with a bunch of different groups, growing up around a lot of musicians. So I was definitely not your typical engineer type going in. And that's what's cool about Denver Water is I find a lot of people like me that are just a little outside the normal box, So guys I play music with, fly fish with, all that good stuff.
Yeah. What do you play?
I play drums.
Dude,
so I took after my dad like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of learned how to play the guitar a little bit, but the drums when I was in high school, we had a neighbor that had a drum set, and that was hard to do to coordinate, your feet and each hand at different pace, different beat. It's kind of like the old this deal, right?
Oh, it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's so funny because that instrument, I remember it was a good 6 months to a year where I just was, flying everywhere, couldn't figure it out. But then all of a sudden it started clicking.
Yeah.
And once you get that first click, it moves forward pretty good. But then there's still certain grooves, that you'll try to learn, and you feel like it's the first day you ever played drums again, which actually is really fun.
Do you still play now, like in a band?
A lot of my friends have had kids and stuff, so we don't play out much anymore. But we definitely still get together and play when we have some free days.
My brother, he can play drums. He does guitar. He does keyboard, and
Nice.
he actually just we went to go watch him sing. There's like a bar down. Well, it's off Santa Fe near there, and they do open mic. And he goes up there and he just he got like one of those kids with a harmonica that comes up and is playing guitar and everything. He's a lot more talented like that than I am.
Good
He's
for
more
him.
creative.
That's awesome. Has he played in some bands locally?
He's played in bands, local bands. Yeah, we used to watch him play. Yeah,
That's great.
not as much anymore, but he does. I mean, he's real talented with music.
That's cool. Yeah, it's hard to keep the coordination. Like having a band is exactly like having multiple girlfriends at the same time. It's like you bicker, and it's like someone's always late or can't show up, and it keeps it entertaining.
So you did that, and when did you start playing?
So probably more seriously around age 14, 15. So I grew up, and my dad had this sweet recording studio in our basement. And so we had bands coming in and out all the time doing every type of music you could think of, and it was really funny because you'd have a gospel band playing in the morning and they'd be walking out as the hip hop group was coming in. And then,
so you had the whole studios.
Yeah. So, and one of the things he had was a really nice drum room because since he played drums, he had a sweet Yamaha kit. All set up just perfect. And so finally, as I got into my teenage years, I was like, I should probably just sit and play this thing, that's so I started, and he gave me some lessons and played for a couple of years before I started really playing with others. But man, once that clicked in, it was like, this is one of the most fun things I've ever done. So
that's cool. That's something I wish I would have done more of. I wish I would have done more music when I was a kid. I was too worried about playing football. So never too late though on music.
That's what's cool about music. It's never too late. And I tell people that it's great to see kids playing sports. It's been a little sad seeing the music kind of fall behind because, man, my friends and I still have so much fun doing it. It is one of those things that it's entertaining for your whole life. So I always encourage kids, like, if you can put the time in. And it's just like a language. It's easier when you're younger, man.
Yeah.
It's never too late, but boy, it gets harder.
And you grew up here in Colorado?
I did.
Yeah,
just
native?
over in Arvada. That's it, man.
Yeah, A-town.
But you a native?
No,
Yeah.
not really. I mean, I'm a military brat, so we got out to Colorado. My dad was teaching at the Air Force Academy,
Right
at the end
on.
of his career in the Air Force. So that's how we got to Colorado. By then, I think we'd already moved 3 or 4 times.
Oh, wow.
And then we got to Colorado Springs, and then my dad left there, and we came up to Denver. And my dad he was a computer science.
Right on.
Taught computer science back when, I remember some of my first memories as a kid. He went to BYU. That's where he got his undergraduate, and went to ROTC.
Yeah.
And then we were in Boston at Hanscom Air Force Base, and they said they wanted him to teach at the Air Force Academy, but the problem is you don't have your master's. So they're like, where do you want to go to school? So he went right back to BYU, and I remember he was working on all of his. He would be in the computer room there, and this was like when they had raised floors because all the all the electrical, the wiring, and they had to have fans and everything cooling the computer room, and I was in like a little walker, and he had pulled one of the tiles up to go adjust something, and the walker went down, and I hit myself right here on the floor.
Ooh, yep.
But I mean, some of those, it's crazy how much that's changed because my dad does. Then he got into AI and writing software engineer,
wow.
writing programs. He actually wrote, I believe, the software for Diners Club, how they did their credit risk.
Wild.
So yeah,
That is cool. I mean, what a crazy time to be in that industry. It is.
when it's like it's wild because my dad would talk about you know I don't remember really talking about AI like that, but we were talking about like just how things would evolve. And I remember this is back in, it was probably like 93. And my dad's like, I don't know exactly how, like, what the platform's going to be, but like what ultimately is going to happen is you're going to be able to walk, like you're going to go to the mall and, whether it's like something like whether it's like facial recognition software that knows that you've been there or like what you've looked at, and it's like, it's going to know how to market directly to you, right? And it's like,
Here we go.
and that's in the 90s. That's before, that was, 10 years before, because I think the iPhone was 2003 or something like that. And
Right.
so it's like 10 years before that.
That's pretty wild. Yeah, to have the foresight, especially, I mean, the
It's
internet
probably
was-
just knowing, like, well, it's kind of funny, like, since that's all really it is, it's like pattern and like seeing like the quantitative data and whatever it's going to lead you to. It's
Exactly.
kind of like, you kind of figured this is where it's going to go. I mean, and now, I mean, do you use any AI other than, I mean, not obviously, we'll talk about, I want to talk about the NWPSA yesterday, I can't remember, it wasn't Jacqueline. She gave the presentation on the whole GIS, all the mapping.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. And that's, so I definitely was about AI for Denver Water, but for you, or like day to day, do you use it?
I use it all the time
do too,
now.
now.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's incredible, man. Especially, I'm a pretty DIY kind of person.
Yep.
But, as great as my dad was at music, he wasn't doing a lot of work on the house. And so I didn't grow up, doing all this stuff. But
Yeah.
now that's like you have a just permanent instructor there. So I'm just talking to it all the time when I'm doing house projects, or it's like having a lawyer if you're, doing my
Yeah.
private lease contracts for my rentals or whatever
Yeah.
you have. It's just incredible if you use it the right way.
Yeah, it's something that we really, for our company, that's something that we kind of almost mandated that everyone's going to start using. And obviously, there's concerns. You have to go ahead and unless you're using it just personally like that. But if you're in business, you have to make sure that whatever you put in there, you're protected. Your data is important to you.
Exactly.
So that's the other thing. You were putting in sales numbers and financials, and it's like, man, it's like, imagine how much knowledge that thing gains every single time. Like, everyone's downloading everything into it. And from a business standpoint, and now it's like, where I'm trying to look at other, I started out with GPT,
Yeah.
looked at, do a little bit with Grok, and then
Yeah.
now they have, and there's ones now that they encompass, so it uses AI to use all of them
Right.
to find the best for your application.
Exactly.
I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy. And some of the just associated tools, like had a doctor appointment and used one of those where I just recorded it, plugged it right into an AI, and it just summarized the entire doctor visit. It didn't just transcribe it. It gave you all the points you needed in about 2 seconds. So like, oh, yeah, there's my PT regimen, all this. It's like, this is incredible, man. You just, like, the things at our fingertips. But it's to your point, I think companies especially are having a hard time. Yeah. They know they want to encourage use, but how to make sure you're not
secure.
Yeah, divulging too much information, and just how do you make it secure? It's a pretty interesting challenge.
Yeah, we're actually looking at, we've been working a lot with data centers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're like little cities, man. I mean, the one up in Cheyenne's got a 12-inch main. Or not even a main, like the line that runs through that then branches to each section is like goes 12 to 4. I mean, that's, and there's, it's just computers in there, right?
Yeah.
So much water. And we had to go up there and I had to adjust some valves. And then Rob went up there for leak detection because they had a leak out there and they couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So but getting on those places is insane. I mean, it took me almost an hour just to get through their screening and everything before I could. Oh yeah, and then the door's locked and like don't go past. Like, you stay in this area. Someone's watching you.
That's wild. I believe it. I mean, it's the amount of servers and stuff they have at these
Yeah.
things. It's amazing the computing draw that exists now with AI. I mean, it's like we need so much infrastructure. And
Yeah,
so it's
that's a challenge. I mean, that is everything needs to be cooled, right? And then using water to do that and the volume, efficiency. It's like right now you're in this time where the demand or the capacity is not quite there, so you have to increase. Plus, water use and is under scrutiny, right? It's like how much can you recirculate that? Can we use a secondary system? There's a lot of questions, and then even with like nuclear, I was over at this is 2 years ago. I was up in the Wyoming Rural Water Conference,
oh yeah.
and they have there's a town called Chem-Ur.
Oh yeah.
It's like right on the border of Idaho and Wyoming. Beautiful.
Exactly.
Star Valley, I think, is the area. But that's where I think it's Warren Buffett and is it Bill Gates? Yeah, they want to build a nuclear plant there.
I've heard
And
about that.
I mean, I think there's like, don't quote me on this, but I'm say like 6 to 9 million gallons a day. Sound right about? Yeah. I mean,
Probably.
it's like the equivalent of, one of your plants,
Yeah, it is. It's a small plant worth of cooling water. It's a really incredible demand.
and they're going to, so they, then the town there, Kemmerer, they have two guys there. One guy for the water department that runs the water, and one other guy with him. And then they have, they're being told they're going to have to, build the infrastructure for it. And they're like, how are we going to do that?
Exactly.
And so it was like, well, normally they pay for that, right? But, the state of Wyoming wants them to be there, right? They're giving incentives, so it's like, no, we're going to make it happen. But you're going from a town of like, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people to needing the demand. I think that's about where like one of the large sections of like Thornton or Westminster is like a
Right.
6 million gallon, 6 MGD tank. It's like, it's insane.
That's an incredible amount, And I think that's what people don't necessarily think about with data centers or nuclear plants is that the draw on the electric grid or the water grid is typically significantly more than the infrastructure can handle unless the system is built a certain way. So it usually takes a lot of modification and a pretty significant cost to get that done.
I'm actually surprised that you don't see more, people that, or if I'm in the data center like sector, right, and I'm looking at how to design something, I might want to reach out to, I might want to maybe recruit somebody who's in a water distribution system, because that's really what it is. It's instead of people, it's computers.
I would not be surprised if you didn't see.
I haven't seen that many. I mean, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Right?
Yeah, you see some kind of private company that probably has people that just manages the distribution systems for all these different outfits. I
But
can see it.
even from another standpoint, most of those, they don't really understand what, like especially force, like the thrust forces that you're dealing with when you get into that size. I mean, it's like when I was there to try and work on a valve, I was trying to explain to them, you have a restriction, or like there's a valve that's halfway closed here because, cause they're saying, well, we're not getting it. It's drawing. So that it was a pilot operator pressure reducing valve,
Right.
PR, and it's drawing. So the upstream pressure is dropping, right? That there's no way.
That should not be
Because, and I'm like, the line that's feeding is a 4-inch line.
Yeah.
We size the valves. They're at, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And so they've been sized properly, and there's no way it's being fed off a 12-inch line. There's no way that we're drawing off of a 12-inch line right now. Like you have like probably a gate valve halfway closed or something.
Exactly.
Because that's the only way that it makes sense.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when you have private operators of systems like that. I know we've talked about that in the corrosion world where, a lot of owners of systems that kind of exceed what a normal private system would look like, they don't think about things like corrosion. And it's interesting, you've seen this in the solar industry where a lot of these solar panels, all the mounts and the piers have corroded underground. And so all of a sudden in cathodic protection, the next big thing next to oil is protecting solar arrays. So I bet
Windmills are next.
Yeah, right. Windmills, data centers, it's probably all coming.
That's actually a good point. I wonder if they've looked at really thought about the corrosion side of it. But a lot of it you see too is they do a lot of the well, what do they like it's like PE pipe, but it's for it's like a fusible PE, but it's like for chemical and non-potable water.
Right.
So we see a lot of that in there. I mean, there's a lot of PE,
I
but
would think so. Yeah,
but there's still
PVC, HDPE, all those type of.
it's insane though. I
non-metallics.
mean, the number of like strut and clamps and because all the piping going above, it's wild.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think like there was a request the other day that someone was looking for like a 76 18-inch lug style butterfly valves for a data center.
Yeah, that's an order right there. That's
But that's a lot. You think 18-inch pipe in there?
right.
What's feeding it?
Exactly. I mean, to your point, I mean, we don't, like our distribution system doesn't have a lot of 18-inch main. That's really, it's not quite transmission, but you're getting into, that's a huge feeder,
Yeah.
like 6, 8, and 12 feeds most
Yep.
metro areas. So
Yeah.
that's incredible that's the demand you're seeing on those things.
Well, and it's just gonna. I mean, it's gonna grow that industry, and now it's like they call it now the super powered AI, like
Right.
that it's accelerating at an insane rate.
It is.
But yeah, aside going back to water with corrosion, I mean, what do you think is the biggest challenge in water infrastructure?
I really think that the age we're at where most of the distribution pipe and transmission pipe that is installed currently in the US was installed post World War II, and so you're reaching this 80-year-old vintage on a lot of this where it's at the end of its useful life. And I think a lot of utilities are seeing this exponential increase in main breaks. Mm-hmm. And in America alone right now, you're seeing billions and billions of dollars just in potable water annually lost directly to corrosion. So I think this challenge of how to maintain your distribution system and then replace pipe at the rate is going to be required is going to be just an incredible challenge. And I think every utility is going to have to ask themselves what an acceptable rate of main breaks per mile is going to be for them.
Sure.
And what their investment capability is going to be to make that as least painful for their ratepayers as possible.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, that's the other point too, is, every year it seems like my Excel bill, the rate is higher and higher, right? But if you try and raise the water rate, you got people out with pitchforks in front of the water department.
It's absolutely true, and it's something Denver Water is extremely sensitive to, and we realize that it's such an impact to our community when we do have to raise rates, and so I can tell you the level of scrutiny that goes into those decisions is, I think, appropriate and very, very high. But at the same time, like Denver Water's going through this huge capital expenditure. We, built North Water Treatment Plant. We're raising gross dam, and you have a winter like this year where I think it's going to.
Oh, don't say the D word.
Right. Yeah, it's here. That D word is here. I mean, we're seeing the drought, and I think this is why we build a resilient system. It's for years like this, or potentially, you never know when you could get multiple years like this.
Well, it seems like it's been happening. Like, more and more. We've had a couple, and I'm just hoping, just praying that March this month, and then April being the second snowiest month, and we've been able to pull ourselves out of a potential drought in this late. Now I don't know about I don't know about starting this far behind, right. But I don't know. It's still 70 degrees out there right now.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw 82 degrees next week in Denver, and I went, I think this is it. It's like if we were going to get the winter, it would have had to have been in March, and boy, seeing 80 degrees in Denver is not a good sign. So, yeah, it's coming for us. I think we can hope that La Nina's kind of dying out, and hopefully we get a wet spring, early summer. But at this point, the snowpack's not looking too good.
Yeah, it's not looking good. So, but I mean, I think people would be. I think one of the things that would be great for the industry, and that's one of the things I was hoping eventually with the podcast, is that, I mean, obviously I know people that that aren't in the water industry, they're gonna tune out of this, right? It's gonna, like, this is not something that interests me. But my hope is that maybe someone who's younger or something like that, they listen. And I think when I first started the podcast, it was, when I say not me, Sky, I can't take Sky should take most of the credit for getting this all set up, who's our producer. But my thought was I didn't want it to come in and talk about products, and I wanted to talk about the industry. Right. And then what I really learned the first 2 interviews I think I did was it's more like the legends thing. It's more about the people that are legendary. It's like everyone has their story of how they got in the industry. Nobody gets into this industry because they're in school and like, I'm gonna work in water.
Exactly.
Because you didn't even know that, people just go home and turn on the faucet and expect it to be there. And so I think one thing that could potentially help the community for understanding the challenge is, like, if there was a way to communicate effectively the challenges that the water system operators and the water and distribution systems face every day. Because Denver Water is phenomenal, and but it's funny because Denver Water is different than your regular public agency.
Absolutely.
And it's like, if there's, I hate to say it, but there's proof that that private sector does it better than government, it's going to be Denver Water. It's just saying that from that standpoint, they understand the importance. They jumped on lead mitigation. They jumped on that. They just said, we're going to do it right now. And that's because there's an exposure risk element, right? So to them, it was worth it. And to me, it's like the gold standard of how the system works. There's a lot. Obviously, it's a massive organization, so you're going to have, some of that, some of those roadblocks and things like that, those challenges and those big organizations. But in general, they're looking for solutions. They're open to them. Whereas I know when I started, I just thought Denver Water is this massive organization that you even talk to somebody there is hard. But getting to know you and Katie and Drake, we had Nick working with us and Michelle. They have people that really are looking to, hopefully for continuous improvement, right, of the industry, of water infrastructure in general. I think you guys are the only ones I know that I've heard where you have a goal stand for rehabilitation, for replacement, right? I believe it's like 1.5 or 2% annually.
Yeah, we're shooting for 1% right now. Yeah. And to your point, it's really the genius of the charter that our forefathers put together, I think, because as much as we are technically part of the city and county of Denver, we operate completely independently, to your point. We're purely ratepayer funded. There's no tax dollars in and out, which really keeps that political piece. We talk often with utilities where it's a city manager and like the roadways and sewers fighting for money for potable water lines. And that's a tough recipe to, everyone's kind of fighting for their infrastructure. So, it's really created a organization that can be forward thinking and really focused on quality. When we design a lot of our infrastructure now, we really are shooting for 100-year life, just because we know that is going to provide the best cost benefit to those ratepayers that we're serving. And it's really exciting to work in an engineering group where that is the goal. And then we actually get to do our own designs. We work with some great consultants in the area, but we really pride ourselves in having that expertise in-house to do everything from hydroelectric plant design to cathodic protection to all the mechanical systems, pumps, valves. So it's a really neat place to work because you get to do the technical work and get into the weeds on some of those nerdy things we all enjoy.
Yeah. It's like Brent. We were on a conference call. Brent's the president of Rep Masters and UGO, and he was telling me that, or he was on the call and saying, John's like the biggest water nerd I've ever met. So I'm like, I'll wear that badge with honor.
That's right. Yeah, that's a compliment.
That's a fun one.
That is, man.
I didn't think I would like it. I had no idea, but I like solving problems.
Exactly.
So what's interesting is I found out. I didn't know this, but my grandfather was an engineer.
Cool.
He was I think I'm third generation, generation military. He was worked in the Army Corps of Engineers, a Fulbright colonel, and got his degree at Purdue.
Oh, neat.
So I knew there was a little bit of that. My dad's a software engineer, which is still solving problems.
Absolutely.
And my dad nerds out on like figuring out how to solve a problem with the computer.
Yep.
Like my dad was like one of the, he'd take one of those, I can't remember the computer he told me where it was kind of like Excel, but it was like he could solve something that everyone was doing on, spreadsheets and stuff by hand.
Exactly.
So he loved that.
Exactly.
And then I found out after what was cool is my grandfather, I think my dad gave it to my grandfather gave it to my dad and then gave it to me. It was his father, so my great grandfather, wrote the book for Philadelphia for water treatment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I had no
cool.
idea. He wrote their whole standards for it, like the first edition.
That would be cool to see, man, from that vintage. That would be really neat.
I have it in my office. Yeah, it's
I'm gonna have to check
it's
that
old.
out.
But yeah, I worked for Philadelphia, which I think back I'd heard some. It's cool to listen to. There's like this changing of the guard in the industry.
Yeah.
Where you have the guys who've been doing it for a long time, and I think back in the day they used to refer to some of the utilities as the dirty dozen.
Oh yeah, we still do the dirty dozen.
The dirty
man.
dozen. Yeah, one of the dirty dozen.
That's
yeah.
the meeting twice a year typically still.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, Philadelphia had it. To me, it made sense when I saw that. It was like, okay, now I get it. It's there somewhere.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because I know that even with like my favorite hobby's fly fishing, and I like to whitewater raft now, but it's funny how I'm just drawn to rivers and waterways, and there is this weird connection you develop with water, and so doing it for my career has just felt like home.
Yeah.
It just becomes part of you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So you were talking about when we were talking about the challenges faced, they're going to have to find out what's an acceptable loss. To your point, you're talking about the aging infrastructure. I look at it as the war of attrition. Like the systems are getting larger.
Yeah.
Right. Denver water is pretty much. You guys have the advantage where you're built out, unless you're talking about
Right.
plant. But as far as a distribution system, you guys don't have those challenges of having a massive growing system where you're already dealing with aging infrastructure.
Right.
And you're growing. And so it's like you can't keep up with the pace. And I think that's nationally where we're at. When you look at Wyoming, you have towns that increase their their population over the last 3 years by double, triple, quadruple. But their water systems can't handle that much of a increase in demand. You can't keep up with that. It takes, how long does it take to put in the infrastructure for an addition, to double your population? And I think an example of that is like, Bozeman, Montana is like an example. I know my understanding there is that they've basically said like no more. Like
Right.
there's no more. There's nothing else we can build out right now. You're gonna have to slow down, or like that's it.
Exactly.
Until because they can't keep up.
It's exactly right, and it's interesting too because it also goes into how are you designing these systems, and it's easy to cut corners from a design perspective when you are trying to grow or having to grow so fast, and that puts an extra strain on your distribution system too. So to your point, it's a problem we're not familiar with, but I certainly hear about it and talk to people about it at conferences and things, and it's extremely interesting.
It's a big problem. It was like when yesterday I did a class there, and that was at that NWPSA, so I taught a class there, and my line that I was using is, are your populations in general, are they growing or are they shrinking? And they're growing. And I said, so I'm assuming your operating budgets are growing at that same rate, correct?
Yeah, chuckle.
Yeah. I'm like, what? They're not? And again, that's part of, I think that a communication with understanding. Aurora Water does a phenomenal job. Now I'm with ECCV. We moved, but I've been with Aurora Water as a customer for a long time, and but my son came home with this booklet, and it was all about water. Like he was showing me, look, this is your job, Dad, and he like showed me source, like reservoir, everything, like how it all works, all the way to point of use. And I thought that was something that was really cool to get. Like right now, it's going to be hard to communicate with people with that. But if you can get with kids in school and hopefully maybe get a generation that's interested. And I think there's a lot of young people coming into the industry now. And that's exciting to see.
It is, yeah. I got to give a shout out to Matt Bond at Denver Water too. I don't know if you've met him, but he goes to schools and does education for Denver Water, and he does just a phenomenal job with all those kids, and it's really neat to see. Just trying to get that message out. To your point, if you can plant that seed and just spread some knowledge, they tell their parents that night, and it's just a great way to spread the message about, like to your point, how's our water getting here from all these snowpack to reservoir through siphons and tunnels and canals.
And California's stealing it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I plead the fifth on that conversation. That's for other experts.
Well, all you got to do is look at rain harvesting, the legislation on that, and why you couldn't do it for so long.
It's that's what they say here, right? Wow, the whiskey's for drinking, the water's for fighting. It's just such a valuable resource. The history is just incredible. It really is.
Have you watched? I was on a plane one time traveling, and I saw it was like Water Wars. I think it was called. It's about like the history of California and how their whole water rights divvied out.
I don't think I have seen that actually.
Yeah, you should look for it. You should look it up and check it out. I'm not gonna. I don't. All I remember is it was insane. So you had, there's an aquifer. That there's places in California where you can see, roadways or signs where the ground is dropped 3 feet, and that's because the aquifers they've drained that thing.
Exactly.
And then it was about funneling it towards like Nampa or like where all the agriculture area is, and like not getting it down to Southern California. And I don't know, they drafted up all these. They had meetings and everything, and there was like, I remember. I think there's like accusations of somebody being murdered over it. Like it's crazy. You should watch it.
I will have to. That sounds exactly right. That is the
like
West
water
in a
cowboys,
nutshell, right? Yeah.
Well, actually, I think that is a challenge here versus in the East. Is that, it was like the Wild West out here when all this stuff was going down. Like, you think the the government's coming out here to help like get water infrastructure going?
Right.
No,
it's like this was done by the people here.
Yeah, in the East, it's all like set, and they have their challenges obviously with aging infrastructure.
Yeah,
but here it was like the wild, wild west, man. Come out here and all right, go ahead and build it up, and you guys can manage it and have the water rights.
That's it, and that's the first thing that I think strikes you if you go visit the East Coast or anywhere in the Eastern United States. It's green everywhere. There's just water everywhere. And you come out here and it is just so dry. There's just the rivers out here are so small relative to the rivers out there, and yet the populations just continue to grow out here. The agriculture demand continues to grow.
Yeah.
And I think with the drought we're seeing this year, there's going to just be further conversations and further discomfort with a lot of this issue, especially across the western states. But water rights is. It's amazing that a lot of people get law degrees and just focus on that out here,
Yeah, you could do well with that out here.
You can, yeah.
No, and I was bringing up Wyoming because we cover typically, we're in the Rocky Mountain area, so we go to Utah and Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, and New Mexico, and even El Paso, Texas, because apparently. People don't. It's hard for someone who's in Dallas to cover there, so it's easier if you're in New Mexico. This is right there on the point. But in those areas, the challenges are like I really do have like a warm place in my heart in Wyoming because when I go up there and do classes, like you hear the challenges these guys have. They have some have volunteer firefighters that are water. They're firefighters that are volunteer water operators.
Right. So
if they have a main break. Better chat GPT that one.
Exactly. Man, that is something that, especially as I've done presentations for Action Now and different.
That's because you see that same thing when you're out in car, and that's a really cool thing.
It is
that Denver Water has, Drake's, really been a big proponent of keeping that going, so that those rural areas don't feel like Denver Water doesn't care, right?
Right.
So,
And that's what's really neat, and it's incredible.
why don't you
talking to a lot
explain what that is?
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he, to your point, Drake is on the committee for the AWWA where they do these Action Now seminars so people can get water credits towards their licenses. But it's a great way for them to put a full day of courses on, like hour to 2 hour long courses, and the content is just water related. So I, do corrosion classes there, but there's everything from pumps to state regulators to IT GIS things to every different piece of infrastructure that you guys might rep. So it's really interesting. I always try to stay when I can because the content is so broad.
Yeah.
But my favorite part for sure is just meeting some of these operators from some of these really small towns in Colorado where, to your point, it's like, man, there's two people that run not only the plant, but the entire distribution system. And it's hard to, especially as Denver Water, we're all so specialized. Like I'm lucky enough, I have a job just in corrosion, where these guys do everything. So that's what's unique about the water industry. It's like the company look is totally different depending on what size you are.
And I think it's awesome that they do that. And I love participating in that. But, you travel out to La Junta and then you go kind of around all over the state, Buena Vista,
Right.
Durango. And they get a good turnout just because it's hard for those guys to get down. And honestly, it's hard. How can you? If you're if you got two people there, can you be gone for 3 days at Rural Water Conference? It's hard.
Exactly.
And because everything I would say, there's all these things that these guys have to do in a day, between regulatory compliance and valve rotations, right? Oh, by the way, ISO requires the hydrants are flushed or pressure zones tested once every 5 years. Every single hydrant. You get two people, come on.
Right.
All that stuff adds up, and then I would say at the end, oh, by the way, main break, because that
Exactly.
takes precedent over everything.
Then you drop everything. And that's when you talk to a lot of these folks. It's very reactionary. They're just putting out fires all day long. And it's a challenging way to operate, but based on their budgets and the populations they serve, that's what they're given. So, and yet they make it work, They're making good water and serving good water to their base. So
Colorado in general has outstanding water for, tap.
But
It's funny because I'll still drink water that's tap now.
Oh, absolutely.
It's great water.
It's funny, as a guy that, part of my job is I crawl pretty much every piece of infrastructure.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. I've been in 30-inch diameter pipes up to all the intake gates. I've stared at a gate above my head in Dillon Reservoir where, 200 PSI is like blasting, out the seams. Gross Reservoir, same thing. So I've seen just about all of it. And I gladly turn that tap on. I mean, it's incredible how clean and good all this infrastructure really looks. And there's no microplastics in our product, which is good,
That's the new.
Yeah.
I'm always wondering what the next one is. It's like, oh, here we go. The PFAS.
Yeah, there's always a new one.
There's always a new one. Yeah. Well, and it's there is, to that point, there is definitely some. When you start getting into some of everyone knows the amount of money that's being put in infrastructure.
Yeah.
And so, we talked about this earlier. Politics kind of tends to leak into everything. Even if on the private side, it's more about how the message is being communicated. Like, I kind of thought it was funny where, you have these organizations, the PE Alliance, right? So it's like all the plastic guys, and I'm not going to just single out anyone because I'll say then there's DIPRA, it's the Ductile Iron Association, right?
Exactly, you got it.
So they're all, and then you have all these that they combine manufacturers, and their deal is to keep that type of solution in. I don't know. I just always feel like if you claim that one particular product or one solution is the end all be all, then you need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Because it can't be like that.
Exactly.
Because every system is different and every system's unique and they all stand on their own.
They do.
And if you understand, PE, I think HDPE pipe is phenomenal. But there's give and take. So then it's like, there's a fuse process. right? That process has to be pretty clean. If you watch somebody fuse, you have to be in this. It's like a tent they pull out there, and it's all clean, right?
That's exactly
And then
right.
there's a guy, I don't know if you know him, is John Roberts at Core and Main, and he just cracks me up all the time because I always remember this, sticks out where, he's had some of his customers had bad experience with HDPE. And so, he tends to get a little upset about it. And they were doing this fuse, they were doing a demonstration for fusing. And it's all in this like clean room, right? And he's like, yeah, great. Now do that in a hole 6 feet deep, full of mud and water at 20 degrees with wind.
Exactly.
And so it's like, to the point is, okay, well, maybe HDPE pipe with mechanical solutions for connections. I mean, that's something Colorado Springs, they wouldn't allow any more EF saddles or things like that because of that. It's always about the installation. I mean, usually that's the big, to me, I think the two biggest things that are really causing the 6 billion gallons of water a day lost across about 2.5 million miles of pipe is installation and corrosion.
Yeah.
And the corrosion, even though it's part of the installation, you can't put it on the installer because maybe that wasn't looked at. And
Right.
I mean, it's the one thing that you see in the industry all the time. I'll be down in a PRV vault. It was funny because I had this picture that I took of this strainer that looked like it had been sitting, underwater for like 5 years,
Right.
under salt water.
Exactly.
Right? And it's the only piece in there that looks like that. And someone's like, that shows the importance of effective coatings. And I'm like, no,
It's like, well,
that's not it.
Right.
It's about, you have ductile iron, cast iron strainer. It's enamel, that's fusion bond or enamel primer painted. But you have the weaker metal.
It's exactly, and that's one of the things I try to really push it, especially those Action Now seminars, is have a galvanic series up on your wall, because when you're putting those things in, installing pieces together, you can predict which one's going to be your problem, which
Right.
one's more active. Like if I'm putting aluminum rail with a bunch of stainless infrastructure, it's like your aluminum's going to go.
Right.
And it's a nice way for those guys to help be able to kind of predict where their maintenance is going to be in the future. But yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is we do a lot of cathodic protection, we do a lot of coatings, but we focus probably more than anything on material selection.
Okay.
So we're working with civil, mechanical, electrical, water treatment, and just really helping decide what should we choose for this valve, pipe, appurtenance, chemical feed system, what type of coating and lining should it have, and what's the most cost-effective way to make this thing last as long as you can. Because to your point, when you're choosing those materials, whether it's PVC, HDPE, ductile, steels, there's always pros and cons that you just have to vet out, and it's always unique to whatever environment you're in. So there is definitely no magic solution.
No.
And there's thought should be put into each installation, and that's certainly what our team tries to do there.
No, you guys definitely do, and that's like what you were saying with there's pros and cons. It's like HDPE is phenomenal. I think it probably would say it would have the best life expectancy just in terms of the pipe itself, but
yeah,
you're gonna you have connection, so there's a potential for installation errors on the connections,
right?
And then HDPE is great, but you have to understand it's going to move, right? A lot more, like the movement. So as long as you understand that it's going to move, and you plan for that movement, and your design allows for that movement, you're going to be okay.
Exactly.
But if you put that in there and your design does not allow for the movement, you're going to have a problem.
Exactly.
And so we always say. And then the other flip side of that is that it also requires less force to restrain HDPE from moving than it does iron pipe, because everything moves.
Everything moves.
Everything expands, everything contracts, everything corrodes.
Yep.
Everything.
It does.
Oh.
And to your point, you also have to look at, are there contaminants in the soil? That
Sure.
With plastic pipe, that is a concern. Can things leach right through the pipe wall and actually enter the water supply? That's something we look at for every single project. And that's where your iron pipes and steel pipes start to shine again, because they're impermeable to those things. But to your point, like our main break rates are certainly lower for our plastic pipes
Yeah.
than our iron pipes.
And you see that PVC is certainly, each year I look at that trend of what, I don't know, that Utah State Water Research Lab
Yep.
study, right? And so you can see that people are definitely moving more towards the PVC, which is why when we talk about the organizations, you have to wonder when a report comes out about, and then you see that it's, there's definitely a connection there with, it wasn't written by DIPRA, but there's definitely some type of a connection. You have to wonder, just like when the PVC pipe guys put it out,
Right.
right? You have to wonder what's the end goal here, and really what it should be about, and that's where that's where I'm like passionate about it. Is it should be about, it doesn't matter. It's like the improvement of the industry.
Exactly.
If you have to resort to putting down another product, right, then you probably don't have the right product yourself,
Right.
right? Because it's really about. There's so many cool products out there. There's so much stuff, and no one. And I think one of the worst things that's happened in the industry is that there's kind of this. Where you have this it's tried and true, and it's, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We've always done it like this. And really, like, the flip side is it's not working.
Right.
It hasn't worked. And the definition of insanity is doing the same damn thing over and over again.
Right.
And it's like, we should be, and I think it hurts some of the water utility districts and municipalities from looking at alternative solutions, not necessarily Denver Water, because you guys look for those for improvement.
Yeah.
But when you have a smaller utility who looks towards what are those guys doing, or what's going on out there, and maybe they might be afraid to take a jump into something that works for their system.
Absolutely. And I really understand that. I empathize with those folks a lot because, and I have to give Katie credit where, she's established partnerships with CU Boulder
Right.
to test different fittings and appurtenances and pipe and things where we do have questions about some of the, manufacturer data that we see. We want to vet that out ourselves because the risk is so high if you start installing these things and you see problems. I can think of examples, of different things we've put in the system over the years, and one bad model and you might have 50 main breaks, or you might have to go service, a bunch of different, you name it, so it is a challenge. So it's, to your point, we're certainly open to ideas, and I love incorporating new technologies. Yeah. We love, especially when the risk of doing so and trialing those is somewhat low. So we love to find little areas we can kind of trial or test or pilot different things. But yeah, I go in skeptical all the time with a lot of these new technologies, especially coatings. Which there's.
Well, it's because you get the what's in it? It's proprietary.
It's proprietary. Well, and I like to tell people, it's the only technology I know of that's gotten worse in the last 100 years from a corrosion barrier perspective.
Coating.
And the truth is, because it turns out lead primers and coal tar enamel full of PCBs and wrapped in asbestos is a fantastic corrosion barrier system. It's better than anything we've ever seen. Unfortunately, you can't utilize these things that are just environmentally destructive. You don't want lead in your environment. You don't obviously can't have lead coatings anymore. We never saw those inside the pipe. These were always exterior coatings.
Exterior.
But still, you don't want to expose manufacturing to that. You don't want those degrading over time into the environment. And so over time, they've just had to develop different alternatives. And then as you had NSF 600 come out in the last few years, a lot of the ingredients into epoxies and polyurethanes, polyureas, vinyl esters, all those things became even more scrutinized. And all the ingredients in the batching had to be updated a little bit. And the performance was affected by those moves too. And so it's
well, I mean,
interesting.
we see that in lead-free bronze.
Right.
I mean, you go to a PRV that's got, the old grandfathered in brass bronze tubing, it's sitting there fine. You go to one that is after the transfer, you get 3 or 4 years, you can put a wrench in that thing, it'll crumble. And so, exactly. I mean, there's give and takes, right? But I mean, obviously we can't accept lead in the system. But.
Exactly. You don't want to be using lead paints. And obviously we haven't for, probably 70 years. But it is interesting when I inspect some of our very old pipe and you look at some of those coatings, you're like, this looks like the day you put it in, where you do have a lot more risk of things like fatigue failure.
Yeah.
And, UV can damage a lot of different coatings. So, yeah, it's just a really interesting industry from that perspective. But obviously still very valuable, and especially if you can order the parts like that and not be trying to do that work in the field. So,
Going to Denver Water, pretty much when you're dealing with your anything that's below, I don't know, 24-inch and below is going to be PVC, right? Now,
PVC,
at this point.
ductile. Yeah, those are going to be your two primary options. We do some steel at the airport still. But that's primarily PVC and ductile iron, yeah.
Yeah. When you look at the cathodic protection system that needs to be put into, when you have a ductile iron, you're going to go ductile iron, you have everything. If you don't get that right, it can be way more costly than what are the things that somebody, if you were talking to one of the smaller districts that just because of the way, the nature of how their system works, they're choosing to go with cast iron, ductile iron pipe, what should they be concerned about? Because to me, I've always thought, again, the installation part, if you miss one of those steps, right, for corrosion protection, if you miss one of those steps, then you haven't broken that bond, right? You still have that corrosion cell.
Absolutely. Yeah, ductile it's such a great material, but to your point, it is susceptible to corrosion. And I think when you're looking at putting that in somewhere, you really want to be first looking at the environment and the soils.
Okay.
What's my soil resistivity, which is just a measure of how fast is my corrosion cell going to operate in this soil. The lower your resistivity, the higher your corrosion rate typically is. And somewhere like the airport, when it has a lot of clay soils, those clays tend to be very, very high current conducting type soils or low resistivity. Do you have sulfates, chlorides, like low redox, which kind of gives you an indicator that you might have a corrosion causing microbial tendency? Aeration, all those things, moisture, all those things kind of factor in. A good geotech report should hopefully give you that information. But if those are in a zone where you start to see a corrosive environment, that's when you really want to start looking at things like cathodic protection, bonded joints. They also offer that zinc coating now, the V-biopolyethylene encasement. And I think one of the most critical things with ductile is installing that polyethylene encasement correctly.
Yeah.
And it's one of the bigger risks, I think, that still exists for that pipe installation is it is hard. It's muddy in these pits, and the excavations are tight, and getting that wrap installed correctly and tight around the pipe and sealed with PVC tape around valves and fittings and service lines. I think it's a challenging thing to get done at 100% success rate.
The amount of time it slows down for an installation too is that, and then it's making sure that it's being done, because typically, you guys now, since you're built out, if you're making a change, your guys' crews usually do that.
They do, yeah.
Yeah. And so the challenge, I think for a lot of these systems, like when you look at, areas of the development, they're wanting to go now and jam quick. And those systems are going to be installed by the contractor.
Yeah.
Right. And then once the contractor is done, after a year, they're sweating down that 1 year point, right?
That's right.
Then
that warranty
you
is
own
over.
it. So it really does come down to the inspectors. Like that's kind of the backstop. That's a challenge for the contractor, understandably so. You're in a bid process, right? So they're looking at everything, but your biggest expense is your people and the labor. Just like for Denver Water, it's people and power.
It is.
So for those guys, like, they're trying to do everything they can to do it right, but do it as efficient as possible.
Exactly.
And so then that's when you kind of run into with that. How does Denver Water do their bid process if you do put something out for bid? I think you guys do like a really cool, like a weighted thing, and then based on, I think you guys also require some type of someone be on site who's certified as a.
Yeah, so it really depends on the work you're doing, but typically in the capital side, one of the cool things that engineering has done is really develop these relationships with different contractors, and we pre-qualify different companies and really look at their, their QA, QC process, skill set, their project history, their safety record, all those things that you want to be in a good condition before you go to business with these folks. And then from there, usually, and it depends on the project. Sometimes we will open it up to a big group. Sometimes we'll just say, hey, we think you five that are the most qualified, so we're going to open the bid up to you guys. We do a lot of low bid driven type projects, but sometimes we do a quality-based selection as well, where we'll weight different factors like the approach to their project with their price, with their safety approach, with their schedule, all of those type of things. So it's very just dependent on how that project looks and what our requirements are.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing for municipalities or for cities to do, especially public ones, right? Because the bid is out public.
Yeah.
So when you see some of these bids in water, it's like if you look at bid tab, sometimes you'll see something like somebody's $100,000 less than everyone else, or they're 40% less. Right, and the initial reaction was, why didn't you select that one? Right, usually it's like everyone's around here, this one's out here, something might be missing. It's hard. I kind of, when we do the classes, I have a guy throwing a dart. It's kind of like take your pick, and that's hard.
It is hard, and it's a great statement too, because I always joke, it's like buying something on eBay. It's like when you see the one that's 100% cheaper, it's probably a scam, and it's it's not so different in contract.
Well, the study was I had spent 12 years in the car business, so I used to always I would talk to my sales guys about being a guide or a consultant, like helping, not being there to sell them something, right?
Right.
Because what's funny is people by nature, if you put somebody in a store, they did a study where if you put somebody with the same products in a store, right, they're going to look at that, and you have the cheapest one, or you have one that's the highest priced one. And they're like, oh. And then you have the cheapest one. And usually they're like, well, what's wrong with that one?
Right.
And so they'll go somewhere in here.
Exactly.
And I think for a lot of times, sometimes that'll be like the bid process instead of going, well, let's look at it. Or what's, because those pricing, by nature, we tend to not want to just buy the cheapest thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're my dad, and I love you, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Right, yeah. Exactly.
My dad was.
We have those family members, right? And that's why I think one of the great things about that pre-qualification process is that if we're choosing for folks or groups that we feel really good about, then we're happy to take the low price, because we go, we've done 25 projects with you guys. We know what you're about. You give us a price, we're gonna believe you. And that was a really strong addition to our bid process that came in. You have that pre-qualification piece, so that it helps shield you from somebody coming in and just, they missed the entire electrical series on that set. Or I've seen some wild things, not just on ours, but other people's bids where
usually when something's off that, it's somebody missed something.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because usually it's pretty close. Or you have we had a case where if you have an installation method and like a product is it meets the standard, and the method of installation is that, then you can save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like rollers on casing spacers, if they're stainless steel and you happen to have the right environment where you're pushing it through steel without any obstruction, that can save pushing that thing through. Especially when you're dealing with large diameter.
Exactly.
That can cut your installation time in half. That's your biggest expense.
Exactly. And there's been a few bids like that where, you see that low number, and the first thing we'll do is we'll call them and just go, hey.
That's great that you do that.
Right, because it's just going we're just going to let
How
you
did
know.
you do that?
You guys were way under, so we just want to make sure. Did you see all these things? But then they come back with, we're going to take this approach, and we think we can do it, way more cost effectively. And you go, that's great. We love that, So it's always neat to see the innovation from the contracting community too, and especially the people that have been doing good work here for a lot of years.
Yeah, there's great contractors. There's good ones and bad ones, like anything.
Yeah.
It's like yesterday I was showing a picture of, and I didn't even notice it. I was having the different changes in over the period of time in infrastructure, and I had this wood stave pipe, and then I had PVC pipe, and then I'm like, I didn't even notice this before. As I'm looking at the backhoe that's at the very, very top, has got the bucket down. It's like this up against the pipe. And I'm like, I never even noticed this. Does anyone see any problem with this? And like 4 people are like, he's pushing the pipe with the backhoe.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, yeah, turn your head, inspector. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
nudging
but
this
after a
thing.
year, you own it.
You made it. That's it. You just got to make it. Exactly. And that's actually, I think, one of my favorite things working with Denver Water is, especially as an engineer, there's a humility that comes with being somewhere for this long, because you get to see if your designs are successful or not, or where you should have tweaked the spec or maybe inspected something a little harder. And it's really fun to go in, not just a year later, but 5 and 10 years later at this point, and just going, oh yeah,
That
I
worked.
messed up there and there and there and there, and I would probably do this differently. So
What would you say if you would go back from when you first started to now, like 3 things that you would do different? If you, in a design, like in general, like something you were like, oh, I kind of commonly did that,
That's a great question.
other than milling the flanges.
Yeah, right.
Just
Yeah,
kidding, Katie.
Yeah.
Katie, by the way, I did want to go back, and when you said Katie does a phenomenal job.
She does.
Yeah,
She's been fantastic to work
and
with.
everything that happened transpired with her making sure everything had a process and was, by the book. She's done a phenomenal job.
Absolutely, yeah. And from a perspective of, I mean, we work together constantly with different products, and it's just so nice to have a set process and a good review team that we can work together and really vet things out the right way.
Yeah.
It's documented. So, yeah, tons of credit to her for putting that together.
She's kind of giving me that Napoleon Dynamite moment sometimes, like when you walk in, you're like thinking, like, okay, I wanted to, just see if they're, because with Denver Water, the process is it's fair and it's right on material requests. They review it, but I always want to reach out and just say, is this something that's even on your radar? Because if it's not, there's so much stuff in the industry that it's like, if it's not on your radar, if it's not an issue to you, you're not going to look at it. I don't want to waste your time on it, right? But there's times where, so I'll go in, I'll just say, hey, here's some things here, and you have that moment, and where you're talking about something, and then she'll bring up this point, and then you just walk out of there like Kip when he's driving with
exactly.
over the Tupperware
Exactly.
Tupperware board. You're like, dang it, and then just drive off.
Exactly.
But I appreciate it because these are things I'll pass back and relay to the manufacturer, and hopefully, like if it's a good manufacturer, they're like, oh, well, let's change
Exactly.
that.
Let's
Like they
update
may
that.
like you were talking about being humble as an engineer there. A lot of times, I think in one of the problems we have is that manufacturers that just think that they've been doing it forever and it's the way to go and it should be for everything. Maybe they need some humility too. When somebody comes back, instead of being like, oh, they're difficult to work with, maybe look at what they're doing. And that's where we've really worked hard to align ourselves, I think, with manufacturers that do that
Right.
will have the ability to look at something and say, oh, this is a problem. Like instead of bitching about it or being mad and like someone's being difficult, let's analyze it. Let's test it. Let's make sure. Let's validate it.
Right. And that relationship on all sides is so important. And we try to operate the same way. If manufacturers or contractors come to us and just go, hey, this spec language, we think that's raising your costs because it's really hard for us to
Yeah.
meet this. We're not just going, whatever. It's like, no, we really want to talk about that. And is that adding the value we need? Should we adjust this, tweak this? Is there a way we can maintain quality without,
Sure.
and-
Compromising performance. And, yeah.
Exactly. And so we expect that out of them too. We recently had to have some
should.
difficult conversations with contractors that we've worked with for a long time, and they were fully, cooperative and happy to receive feedback. And it's just such a good dynamic when you can do that.
And the manufacturers should be able to have that humility to say, well, we'll look at that. We'll test it. We'll validate it. You know what? Instead of like arguing over a point that that maybe it's been like, that's been the product for 40 years. And then somebody brings something up, instead of arguing over, it's working. It's been put everywhere. Well, listen, again, 6 billion gallons of water lost. Not saying your product's the problem, but in general, it's not working.
Exactly.
So let's have the humility to say, okay, well, let's validate it. Let's
Right.
look, yeah, that's a great point. Let's look at it.
Yeah, let's take a
and if
close
it's
look.
wrong, we'll fix it.
Exactly.
Because I think the one thing that's hard for me is that, I know Denver Water understands this, and there's another, Colorado Springs Utilities does a great job as well.
Yeah.
And I remember Holly Link, who was the engineer for materials there, I'd walked in and talked about, this product and said, well, it meets the standard and blah, blah. I said, well, AWWA is the minimum. Like, we obviously, AWWA, you have to meet that. But then it's our system, AWWA plus what we require.
Exactly.
And that's how it should be.
It absolutely should.
And so when you go in somewhere, it's like, that's their system.
Yeah.
That's how we should look at that. And
Exactly.
those manufacturers that want to be upset about it, are you really solving problems? Like, because we need everyone. It's not just the guys that are out there, the operators, the districts. We need the manufacturers to make sure that they're there. That's what they're there for. Without the need, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And that's where, anytime we have that relationship with manufacturing too, where we can go, hey, like, we need you guys to make this product NSF 61 certified, and they come back a year later and go, here it is for you. Things like that, we're so grateful for.
Yeah.
And when they do review our specs and we can kind of discuss different product options and changes, and, they're transparent about formula changes if, NSF 60 or 600 did affect their manufacturing process, and just all those things. And that's why we're so proud of our specs, because we really do have so many of those that we have good relationships with.
And you guys have revisions every 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, it depends. It's average 3 years.
It's like tough to revise an entire spec every 3 years. I mean, that's insane.
It is. It is. It's an extremely heavy lift. I think our next version is actually coming out in about a month or two. Yeah. So we're really proud of that one, and it's an incredible amount of work. But it's been really neat to see the adoption as I go around. I talk to a lot of corrosion consultants around the region, and they're just going, "Oh yeah, we just use your guys' specs and details." And
so what do your spec for corrosion? How does that? Why don't you go kind of brief summary of that?
So yeah, we have really 2 divisions. And there's a CSI master format, so everyone's got a division. Division 3 is concrete. Mm-hmm. Division 1's kind of your standard requirements, submittals, scheduling, all that. We have Division 9 for coatings and linings, and then 13 is cathodic protection. So for Division 9, we own the specifications for everything from resinous flooring, chemical containment systems, general painting and coating, your epoxy, polyurethane, cement mortar linings, wax tapes, viscoelastic, and just general tape wraps. So we own those specifications, and we'll go through everything from QA/QC to the products we've approved through that process with Katie, and then how installation should go, quality control requirements. So it's all kind of put there. So if anyone really wants,
you can go online and get it right now. You can go look it up.
Publicly available. I always encourage people to use it. And to your point, when you want to talk about those lessons I've learned, they're all just in there. It's like stuff I've seen that I'm like, wish I had a sentence that said this. And about half of those specs each now is filled with those sentences, where if, quote unquote, I've gotten burned, or I've seen something wrong, or I've seen something I didn't like, and we've just made adjustments. And I just keep like a OneNote, for the 3-4 years in between editions, where I just, every time I see something in the field, I'm just like, okay, we're changing that and that and that. So they've really grown over the years, and we love feedback. We love anyone to just read them and give us their thoughts. Just our idea is to make them as complete and quality as we can. So Division 13, all of our cathodic protection. So test stations, anodes, reference cells, coupons, all the conductors, everything from installation to quality control, impressed current, insulated flanges and couplings, just commissioning all those systems. So it's all there, it's all there to download. It's a lot of work.
A lot of learning.
Yeah.
A lot of trial and error for you.
Yeah. It's especially, I remember young in my career when you haven't spent a lot of time writing specs. It was, there's a real learning curve there. And
oh gosh. Well, at least you write them.
Right.
not Control C.
That's exactly.
Control C, Control V.
Well, that's what's funny with CP. We didn't have that luxury. We're online Googling stuff, and it's like, man, there's like a few of these out here, but they're not great, honestly. And it's like, I don't think we can use this mostly. So it was just like, oh, we gotta just kind of write this ourselves. And it's like, oh, this is going to be kind of intense. All right, let's go. So.
Well, that's one of the things like with I love about Drake is that the one course that I do that I love it. It's like my favorite one is the aging infrastructure, and it's critical conversations. And I tell them, this is just like things to think about, like just to get you thinking outside the box, so you're not sitting doing the same thing. And one of those is in-house engineering, and I mean, look, you guys collaborate with consulting
absolutely.
engineers, right? I mean, they're very valuable. When you have a project, they're going to go in and they'll help you to make sure, because there's no way that you can know anything, like everything about
Right.
about waterworks and the whole system. Like you would have to have an entire army of engineers.
Yeah.
So it's good to have that because they do. So they can come down, they can pass it to each, whoever has that specialty, right?
Exactly.
But I always say if you rely on a consulting engineer for your specs, for everything, for your system, and it's not their fault. It's not like they're trying to screw you over. They don't.
Absolutely.
But they can't. They're trying to do a generalized specification, and the problem is what works here doesn't work in Grand Junction. What works at Castle Rock doesn't work in Durango. It may or may not. So that's, there's like a gap there. And it's nice to have the backstop really becomes that engineer that has their systems best. They know the challenges. And, I think Salt Lake did a phenomenal deal of where they like hired young engineers out of college and made them work in the field before they could sit at a desk. So now you got people that they have some skin in the game, right? They've been out with the operators. They communicate with the operators. They know the challenges. So now they're like, okay, I'm here to protect our system and our guys.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge thing that I think that could change a lot because a lot of the rural areas have a regional consulting engineer that does everything, and they can keep that person, but you just want to have somebody with that engineer background who knows the system.
Yeah.
To say, okay, well, no, that looks good because it makes their job easier, right? A consulting engineer they have standardized stuff and they can look at it and say, well, yeah, but we're going to make some tweaks here.
Exactly.
So.
And especially for them too, their experience usually will stop at commissioning and then that 1 year mark. And then after that, they don't see that infrastructure anymore. So,
right.
Especially in the corrosion world, we talk about that. It's like, hey, these folks, and at really no fault of their own, they're not thinking necessarily about the design life, or they don't have the experience seeing infrastructure age where they can really make the right decisions because they haven't seen what does that chemical injector look like, not after just 1 year, but 20 years. And so that is also something I like to tell utilities, to your point, is like you have to kind of think about material selection very specifically yourself. I mean, we've seen just really nuanced things like, oh, this person designed an aluminum rail underwater. It's like you would not generally do that. Again, after a year, it's going to look fine. Yeah. After 5, it's terrible.
Yeah. But maybe he was older and he thought it just has to last until I retire.
That's right. This is we can get this no lead time, And,
yeah. That's like corrosion engineer has the best job because it's like you don't know if you screwed up until 5, 10, sometimes quicker.
Yeah, it's funny because I spent hundreds, if not 1,000 hours at Northwater and had supporting design and construction for all the.
I was there quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's I always joke but it's true. It's like I take it somewhat personally when I see anything corroding there because of just the level of effort that I put in, Yeah. But at the same time, it's that humbling factor of you go, oh, I remember having like 6 meetings about this and we decided this, and either that's going really well or I guess we should have gone with this other option, And but you learn those lessons, you take them with you. So
was it Nicole Babiak? Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, and it was funny because she was like, that wasn't my design because it was raw water, and we had control valves. They're all the same, automatic control valves.
Yeah.
In raw water application, no upstream strainer, and cavitation cages, and those BRVs weren't working. And when we opened them up, every single little bit of those perforated holes had rocks in it. Crap. So I was like, that's why they're not working.
Yeah, so this is
Yeah.
exactly.
Usually when you see a PRV that's painted green, that's not a good sign unless it's got one of those big, you know,
Big
cartridge filters or some type of
Exactly.
even then though, it's really hard on those valves, man.
It is, man. Yeah,
But yeah, Nicole was like, so that's what's going on.
exactly.
And I like you guys have a lot of great Jessica Barbier.
Yep.
She's Paul. So
Yeah, we have a
Paul Reese, and then
people with
Drew
years.
Randall. He's fun.
Drew's a great guy. He's been fantastic to work with. Yep, and Katie's group and another guy. Just with that materials review committee and. Anytime we get like a unique failure on some type of fitting or appurtenance or whatever pipe, it's like we're always digging in together. So that's always it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't want to end without you talking about AMP, because you do a great job with that. And
I appreciate that.
And I tell all the utilities if I'm doing a class is you really need to get involved in that. It's really what's really cool is the first year that we were out there. I mean, I remember I went and sponsored and did a booth at when it was NACE and it was in Castle Rock.
Yeah.
And I went there. I was probably the only person in water, and I was like, "Well, this really doesn't apply, I guess." I mean, I thought it would. And now what's cool is you've gotten a lot see people from Colorado Springs Utilities.
Yeah.
There from different water departments, and they really need to be because to understand that stuff it's critical. I mean, oil and gas had it figured out, and now to your point, they're going to solar, and you go where the money is. But really, that's critical for those systems.
It is, and that's you always hear about what's the elevator speech, and oil and gas is required to do cathodic protection, but for water, it's like I always tell my group we're going to have a multi-billion-dollar impact on this infrastructure by the time we retire. I mean. One of those things when you go home and sleep well at night about your job, it's like we've literally and the emissions associated with that. So it's not just a monetary savings; it's a carbon emissions and energy and all those things that go with it. So just what a great feeling to have about your job, And
You've been doing that how long? With NACE?
So AMP, I've been on the committee
sorry.
for about 7 years now. Okay. I always joke it's a little like Hotel California. I was like, it's about a 3-year commitment. Great. I'm like, I'm 7 in. What happened? But it's a great group of people. And, to your point, it's been great growing more into water. And I think our section has a higher representation in water than a lot of them, which is fantastic. And as we've brought SSPC in through the merger and coatings, we're hoping that just grows more. Actually, that short course in January, you can get water credits, just like you can, NWPSA.
Well, I got my certificate.
Exactly, which is great because we're trying to incentivize more water utility personnel to come out and just learn a little bit about corrosion and coatings and stuff that they hopefully can just take right with them. And we offer great full day classes on Tuesday and Wednesday. So if you want to just do a basic corrosion class, we did welding this year. Internal corrosion, AC mitigation if you want to get into the weeds. So there's just a bunch of different topics you can get to, and then Thursday, Friday, hour-long courses and all sorts of different, topics, which is just great. So it's a good show. We hope to keep it going. We usually see between 300 and 400 people every January.
Each year it's grown. Yeah, and I think, and like I said, to your credit, I really do think that's. I don't know how many other chapters have someone from a water utility. I don't know how. Do you know nationally?
I don't. I know a few, I guess, but it's not a ton.
Yeah, it's like mostly guys have been industrial, oil and gas, or that's where you're going to see that.
Right.
But no, you've definitely the difference. I mean, that deal in Castle Rock was like the size of a maybe our office, and just that center part of our office. And then now you guys have grown that. I mean, this year, how many attendees do you have this year? I mean, I had to bail out for that freak out potential snowstorm that never happened.
That was wild. We had never seen that before. But I still think we ended up with over 300 attendees, which is really a pretty good showing. Yeah.
Well, you should keep it going. And I think, spreading that message is big.
Absolutely. And Martin Luther King week in January. That's always our slot at the Doubletree in spring. So hopefully we can get some people coming out.
Circle Drive.
Right off Circle Drive. And we'll provide you meals and free drinks during social hour at the vendors, So we do a few things to try to incentivize attendance that the other sections aren't doing. So
Yeah, you guys do a good job, and there was engagement. I liked, actually was talking to somebody at Rural Water and mentioned your guys' format for the engagement with having like a question or some type of a trivia.
Yeah.
Because now in the past, they just walk up and be like, "Can I get your sticker?" And it's not that you're not trying to sales pitch everyone, but man, you want to have some engagement, right? Some conversation,
Exactly.
and we're there to help. I mean, really, it is kind of a collaborative effort from everyone. Hopefully, if there's, like I've always said, there's good manufacturers and bad ones, and there's, if you're, it's like I tell someone, I could never retire on if you decide to designate 100% of your spec book to every product, which I would never even try to push for.
Right.
Right. To the products we represent. If you did 100% of your spec, I'm not going to retire.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter to me because I have children. I have 4 boys. And this, to me, this is more important for them because if we don't figure it out, my children may or may not have to deal with it, but I can promise you if we don't figure it out, their kids will.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's important to me. And we don't want to put the wrong product in there ever.
Exactly.
We want to make sure we solve a problem. And if there's a problem that we maybe didn't account for or didn't see, we want to be made aware of it so we can tell the manufacturer, hey, this is the problem. What can we do?
Absolutely. Yeah, and those are the relationships we value so much. Just the work to trial different products, continue to grow, to continue to develop new technologies that are going to make things more efficient for our ratepayers. Yeah. That's always our goal. So, like you're saying, it's such a small community. And we are really all in this together, and I really do believe that.
No, you gave me a little COVID flashback. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
But no, to your point, yeah.
Yeah, it's
we're
true,
all in it
though.
together.
It is, man. Yeah. The water group. It's a small unit.
Everyone needs water.
Everyone needs water, and we can all help each other. I think in this business, whether you're manufacturing, contracting, you're an owner. Or just even a private operator, it's like we're all kind of just doing the same things, and we have the same goals, which is good, man. It's fun to make those relationships and talk to people because of that. Yeah.
Well said. Well, I love the conversation. I kind of wish I'd keep going, but I think you've set the record. We have set the record.
There you go, man. That happened fast, huh?
Yeah. No, I really appreciate the time. And I do want to also thank Denver Water because I know it's for an organization like that. Sometimes it can be a little, someone's going on a podcast or you're going to speak publicly. I know how Denver Water is, and which I appreciate. They want to make sure that the images, they're presenting themselves in the best light, because they strive for that. So
Absolutely.
With the community, so I appreciate your time for coming out, and hopefully this will lead to more people from Denver Water coming out because I'd love to get. Either Katie on. I'd love to have Drake on. Jeff Slankert actually was scheduled to come in, and I kind of backed out. Yeah, he said he was sick. Come on, Jeff.
I get it. You're listening. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a hard time.
We'll give him a hard time. Are you going to the CMS Classics, the golf?
No.
I'll give him a hard time then.
Yeah, see, that's a problem, man. I spend all my time fly fishing instead of golfing, so I'm absolutely awful at golfing. I need to get that going at some point.
Well, but man, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming. It means a lot.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, it was really fun talking with you guys. We always appreciate working with you all and all the support you provide us. So, to continue good work going forward.
And it's Happy Friday Cheers. So
cheers,
we'll
man.
close it with that.
That's it.
All right.